Note the items of junk. A bit later, when Jarvis takes Jeff a meal down to the cellar, we see that some other items have added themselves, namely a red wooden toy bus, a length of polished wood, and a brown case of some description leaning up against that.
The gun! Well done. Put him down. You've ruined the table, Jeff.
The final little point is following one of my favourite quips from Jeff.
I went to night school.
Followed by Jeannie giving Jeff a serious headache with the mace.
Jeannie!
Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry. I had to. Why did you do it? Why?
Now, isn't that a touching scene? Will the real Jeffrey Randall stand up, please?
Jeff's head is clearly seen facing to the right, but when the camera pans down, it shows that he's moved his head to hide his face. I do, of course, realise the reason for this is that Mike Pratt can't be in two places at once, but it's still an error in as far as an unconscious man can't move his head. The episode with the longest title is, of course, The Ghost Who Saved the Bank at Monte Carlo. This is a fun episode and features those two fine actors from Doctor Who fame, Nicholas Courtney, the Brigadier, and the wonderful and much missed Roger Delgado, or the Master. Couldn't spot any errors in this one, but isn't Aunt Clara reading that paper upside down? Yes, I realise she could have it folded, but worth pointing out, I feel. I think it's fair to say that every episode of Randall and Hopkirk is a classic in its own right, and it's no different for the episode For the Girl Who Has Everything. Exterior location filming having taken place in the picturesque village of Denham, and of course the Craig Castle location, which we've still yet to see in the flesh. One day. A couple of slips in this episode, starting with Larry going off to see Laura in his car. He approaches the car, and we see that behind it is part of the castle outbuildings, which quickly disappear to be replaced by foliage to Larry's right and a garden landscape. He drives off to Laura's and parks with the back of the car looking towards the gate he's just driven through, and we once again see the same backdrop he's just driven away from. Before and after. Here, Jeff and Marty return from watching Larry seducing Laura, and Jeff knocks at the door. After knocking for a second time, the door opens to reveal the inside light is off. Then suddenly, it's on!
This is fantastic.
The last silly little slip is one I remember spotting the first time I ever saw it many, many years ago as a 10-year-old kid. Marty follows Mrs. Pleasance into the kitchen and very clearly opens the curtains. Tut tut. The episode But What a Sweet Little Room holds a special place in the hearts of us Radas Bods for the fact that it continues to hold the secret of one of the most sought after locations ever. That aside, this is one little error that always amuses me. The Morris Minor drives away from the corner property that has the distinctive blue garage door and blue front door, and drives toward not only Julia Fenwick but the corner property that has a distinctive blue garage door and blue front door. As they approach the aforementioned property, we notice that the area outside the door is clear. But just as he's about to collide with the corner property, some boxes conveniently appear for him to drive into. Incidentally, the back projection effect that was used in this scene was one of the worst ever, sliding about all over the place, and after this episode it was never used again, and quite frankly, I'm not surprised. We now touch on one of the episodes that I think is fair to say gets overlooked on occasions for the more stronger storylines. Who Killed Cock Robin isn't a bad storyline, and of course, like The House on Haunted Hill, much of the exterior location filming takes place at the Edgeworbury Hotel. Couple of small slips, starting with this one when Beeches enters the aviary. He opens the door and enters, and as he closes the exterior white door, it changes perfectly in time to the interior netted one.
So that's it. That's how you reach me.
It'll go to each letter in turn and gradually spell out a message. Now that's all there is to
Well,
it.
I still don't believe it works.
Of course it works. I've done it before.
The next Lulu is again a small observation as opposed to a big faux pas, And this is where Jeannie is in the process of changing the record, and she puts on some Ike and Tina Turner. And if you have a look, you can see she's holding Ike and Tina Turner River Deep Mountain High. But that's definitely not what comes out of the record player. I don't know whether I'm mistaken, but isn't that bloke who's dancing wearing one of Vanessa's blouses?
Yes, sorry?
Come and sit here, Jean.
Brilliant, good lad.
Peter, I'd rather not, really.
Jeannie, don't argue.
I wonder how many times she gave that answer to Marty. Oh, Marty, I'd rather not, really. Next, it's the man from nowhere, where we see Jeff is straining. No, he's not sitting on the lav, he's using a bullworker. He obviously feels that the best way to get fit is a combination of the bullworker and smoking 500 cigarettes a day. God, that could have been nasty. I've spotted 2 or 3 blips in this episode, and one's a real beauty that maybe one of you Radas gang members have already noticed, but I certainly hadn't until I started this valuable project. First up, Jeff does another one of his famous side shifts, this time on his sofa. As he sits down to take a phone call from Jeannie, we see the grotesque lamp behind him a few feet to his right. Then suddenly it moves to being almost directly behind his head.
Jeannie, just get in the car.
As I mentioned just now, the best error that I've spotted in this episode is here as Jeff takes Sheldon's photograph. He's sitting in the driver's seat of the Vauxhall, and Sheldon is quite clearly wearing a grey suit and a yellow tie. But when the photo gets developed, yes, suddenly he's wearing a black coat, and not only that, but the driving seat from which Jeff has taken the photo is now empty. Now, can you spot the difference between this photograph and this one? Yeah, you can see his leg in this one. It was taken from slightly further back than this one, where you can see the white of his shirt cuff by the looks of it and something white on his lap.
They've kidnapped him.
The third error is another backdrop boo-boo when the white brickwork and ironwork fence disappear to be replaced with Lauderdale Road. Incidentally, I'm sure you other gang members have spotted an error here, where Jeff reverses into Biddulph Road, and it's only because we know the area, and then drives out of Biddulph Road and follows the lorry that goes past Biddulph Road, as indeed Jeff goes past Biddulph Road again, look. Last one for this episode, back in Lauderdale Road again, the green lorry passes by and turns bright blue. That's not studio lighting, is it? I mean, it's definitely blue.
That's Mr. Randall's car.
Incidentally, in case you're wondering what Sheldon, or should we say Ray Brooks, looks like now, well, this is what he looks like now. God bless you, Ray Brooks.
We have to recover.
Another episode that I enjoy a lot is When the Spirit Moves You. This features a first-class performance from the fabulous Anton Rogers as conman Calvin P. Bream, trying to pass off a phony American accent to Jeff. When we join the both of them in the office, it seems that Jeff does yet another of these sidesteps. As Calvin leaves, Jeff is standing in front of his desk, which is directly opposite the door by which Calvin exits. But when the camera switches back to Jeff, he's standing in front of the table to the side of the office and to one side of the door. Meanwhile, back at the Atlantic Hotel, Bream is getting sloshed, and his glass fills up by itself. What?
You are the one I hate. Boy.
Almost empty.
Only Jeff could find himself
Half full.
dipsomaniac. What about all this trouble you're expecting?
Oh, even fuller. No, half empty again.
Little devil, I do.
What's he doing?
I love this scene. I think it's totally excellent. And this is a little error that I noticed a short while ago.
Bream! Bream! It's stopping here!